second. I stopped it. Okay.
Okay, we're live.
We're there.
Okay, everyone. Welcome to the April Ask Me Anything. We're navigating HR benefits and retirement planning. Tonight we have Andy Weyker of Sunset Navigators Wealth Advisors and Kasey Davis of HR Consulting Group to answer all of our questions. Each one of them have a short little presentation. They're going to go over a couple of things, and then we will open the floor for questions. Feel free to drop any questions you might have in the chat box, and we will be checking on them or unmute whenever the floor is open. Thanks.
Hi, thank you. I'm Kasey Davis. I work in HR, have worked in HR for about a little over a decade, and have come across my fair share of benefit questions and benefit information. And so asking to talk about this topic is not new to me, but it's also not the same thing over and over again. There's always something new to learn. No question is a dumb question. Even I am learning on a regular basis about benefit offerings and the certain perks that come along with benefits as well. So I wanted to just provide you all with a high-level overview of what you might see in terms of benefits. I often compare it to walking through a cafeteria when you're evaluating a benefit package with an organization. You can pick and choose what works for you and your family, and what may just work for you at a certain point in your life or season in your life. So that's what we're going to talk about, or what I will talk about today before I hand it over to Andy. So let me share just a few slides with you all. I don't want to, let's see, can you all see my screen now?
Yep. Sure can.
Okay, great. I don't want to bore you with everything on this slide itself, but if you're like me, being able to see a visual always helps. So, and what are employee benefits and why do you want to know about it? Well, it's part of your compensation package. So just like looking at your base salary, you want to look at the overall value of employment package with any organization that you're considering. And really even working at an organization for an extended period of time, most likely things are going to change, whether it's with the benefits package itself at the organization or the needs of you as an individual. So always going in and comparing and looking at what you have available to you and what may make sense for you year after year is really important. And each company is going to be different. And the reason for that is that an employee demographic may drive what benefits are offered, the culture of the organization that they're striving to meet with their benefits, and really the importance that they may place on non-monetary compensation, like a base salary or bonus or overtime or whatever it may be. But each of these benefits that are offered to you often have a monetary value assigned to them. So making sure that you understand what that total comp value is super important to your compensation package. So here's a few. I did these in order of probably what you're most familiar with, I hoped, and we'll work from there. This is definitely not all inclusive, but wanted to just do a high level overview of what each of these kind of most common benefits are that I've seen. Medical, first and foremost, that's typically the most elected benefit in a benefits package. You and your company will oftentimes split whatever that monthly medical premium is. It's deducted typically directly from your paycheck, pre-tax, and it's going to help cover any medical related expenses, and there are so many plan designs, so many insurance companies out there that is really going to vary. You could have what's called a consumer-driven health plan, which is going to be more of a high deductible health plan versus just your general copay plan. So again, depending on size of the company, what they've chosen for their plan design, and your HR representative is going to be able to walk you through the details of what that medical plan will actually cover. But no matter what, thanks to the Affordable Care Act, our wellness visits, so like your annual exams, any special screenings that are maybe age-based or family history based are typically covered at 100%, which is awesome. Dental insurance is the next benefit that's usually offered within organizations, and it's going to cover most likely basics. And I'm speaking in generalities here, but basics are dental cleanings, any work or repair that's needed to be done as far as dental work. And again, usually the annual cleanings twice a year, typically covered at 100%. Not all companies offer this, but some may offer orthodontic coverage as well. Vision often works the same way. And again, typically dental and vision, the company may support some of that monthly premium, but sometimes it would be full responsibility, but you've got the buying power of the organization that really drives that cost down for you. Vision can cover eyeglasses, contacts, your vision exam once a year, some really great benefits there. Life insurance, in the unfortunate event of what if, right? If anything were to happen to you, you would want to make sure that you have your estate or your family taken care of. And life insurance is often offered through an organization, or at least reduced cost to purchase life insurance. So sometimes you'll see the company will cover one time your salary, and then you can purchase additional life insurance through them. It can be more affordable to buy that through the organization, and you don't typically have to jump through the hoops. Like if you do a private purchase of getting a medical exam completed. So it's kind of just an all-encompassing opportunity that's pretty easy to get through. And then sometimes they'll offer spouse and child coverage as well. I've kind of put an important to know points over here. If you have friends or family members that say, maybe you've elected Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they say, oh, I have that insurance too. This service should be covered. That service should be covered at 100%. That's not necessarily the case, because that's just the insurance carrier. It's not the plan that actually the organization may be offering. So don't just trust a family or friend that may be telling you something about your insurance, because it's likely not the same. It's likely a different plan design altogether. It's really that's just the carrier's name. And the other thing to note is that not all companies offer family coverage, so make sure to ask your employer ahead of time on that one. Next, again, these are probably some of the lesser known, but it just really depends on organization size. But short-term disability or long-term disability can be offered in the event of an extended medical issue that may put you off of work. It's a great benefit because it's not something you can predict. Women who may be considering having children, this is a great benefit to elect if you have the opportunity, because it can provide you some wage supplementation while you're off. If you have surgery, it's usually a partial wage coverage, but sometimes organizations will cover more. Paid time off, hopefully you're all familiar with vacation and sick time, and that's really going to vary from employer to employer what's offered there. But it's basically just covering your time if you need to go to the doctor, or if you want to take a vacation, now that maybe some COVID restrictions are lessening, and you can be paid during that time off. I put a note in here. This is often a benefit that employers will negotiate on, so ask for more. Whatever's offered to you, I would highly encourage you to ask for additional time off, because it's something that's typically more flexible. FMLA, I put this on here. It's a legally mandated benefit for certain organizations of a certain size. And it's basically job protected unpaid leave in the event that you have a medical condition that's going to keep you out of work for a certain period of time of up to 12 weeks, or you're a primary caregiver of someone. Retirement, which Andy is going to be talking way more in detail about, but most of the time employers as well will offer some type of employer-sponsored investment benefit where they you can basically contribute directly from your paycheck a certain percentage into your retirement. The government provides specific guidelines on how much you can contribute each year, pre-tax and after tax. And there's so many different opportunities. I can't wait to hear some more details from Andy on that one. And then I've listed out on the side here just some additional ones to consider asking about whenever you are working with an employer. Tuition reimbursement is very common right now. Cell phone reimbursement, continuing education, if you're pursuing any kind of certification, sometimes that will be covered as well, or at least a reimbursement for it. All kinds of tax deferred benefit coverages that help you pay for medical or childcare expenses. There's just, like I said, it can go on and on and on, and it's a cafeteria most of the time where you can pick and choose what makes sense for you. So wrap it up here. What should you ask your HR team about beyond just what benefits are available to me? I've put some questions here that maybe you can dig a little bit deeper in if you're really interested in it. There's typically certain periods of time you can enroll in your benefits. It's upon new hire time frame typically, and then once a year they usually have an open enrollment period, and you can't come off or on benefits outside of that. What's the out-of-pocket cost for each of those benefits? Is it tax, pre-tax, post-tax? What are some tax deferred savings options I can look into? What's the total compensation value of my benefits? And really, what kind of culture is this organization looking at when it comes to some of the benefits? That is all I have on what some benefits are or what you can consider when thinking about benefits. And so I think I'll pass it over to Andy.
Okay, great. I didn't know if we wanted to take any questions for Kasey first, or should I just jump into my material?
I think we should just go ahead and jump in with yours, and then we can open the floor for everyone at the end.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I've got a relatively short presentation. It actually was part of a much longer seminar on retirement workplace benefits. I shortened it up. I think I can get through it in about 15 minutes, and which should leave us a bunch of time for questions. So I'll go over just some basic topics at a pretty high level, and I may go through them quickly. You can stop me if you like, but otherwise, like I said, I'll leave plenty of time at the end for questions at the end. So one of the things before I jump into my material, I want to just touch on that Kasey had mentioned, that is something that I also help with. It's just not part of my presentation tonight. Is she talked about life insurance through your employer, and my recommendation is just don't overlook that. Generally, an employer will offer coverage 1 to 2 times your salary, usually no cost or very low cost. And like Kasey did mention, you won't have to go through any underwriting. So you basically just sign up for it and you get it. Most people that I meet, in my course of business don't have enough life insurance. So certainly take advantage of what you can get through your employer. And the similar thing with disability insurance. Kasey had mentioned short-term disability. Short-term generally covers up to 90 days. And then long-term disability kicks in after that. And a typical employer benefit for long-term disability is about 50 to 60% of your salary. So short-term disability might be 90 or 100%, can get you through those, maybe a short-term medical need or something like that. But a longer term, if it goes beyond 90 days, now your long-term disability kicks in. But again, similar to life insurance, most people do not have enough long-term disability insurance, because pretty much no matter what your job is, if you get hurt and you can't work, or sick or whatever it might be, and you can't work, and your only income is 50 or 60% of your salary through your employer's long-term disability, that's going to be a big issue for people. So that's where you want to get hold of somebody like me and look at some individual long-term disability coverage. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself briefly before I jump into my material. I'm a certified financial planner with Ameriprise Financial. Our office is in Appleton, Wisconsin. I've been a CFP for 15 years, or just under 15. I've been in business 15 years. I've been with Ameriprise for 10. The main focus of my practice is comprehensive planning, as the designation would suggest. So comprehensive financial planning covers everything from cash flow and debt, saving for retirement, taxes, estate planning, insurance, pretty much everything with a dollar sign is covered by comprehensive planning. And a way to think about it is it's a very goals-oriented process. So whatever your financial goal might be, that's what we're looking at, trying to help build a strategy, put that all together so that it works, for you. So for most people, retirement is their biggest financial goal. We all hope to retire someday. So that's a main focus of my planning, is retirement planning. So I can share my screen here. I will jump into my presentation. All right, let's see here. I'm not seeing how, there we go. 1 second. All right, why is it not sharing? Let's see here. I'll get there. There, I think we got it. Can you all see that?
Yes, looks great.
Okay. All right. Well, as I said, I help clients with retirement planning as part of their dreams and goals. My goal is to help you feel more confident about your financial future, despite life's twists and turns. And the way we do that is through the confident retirement approach with Ameriprise. So what we do there is we break down financial planning in a way that hopefully is easier to understand, helps reduce some uncertainty and anxiety. And we start that with a conversation about your dreams and goals around 4 key needs. And those key needs are the 4 parts of the triangle: covering essentials, which are necessities. So those are all your monthly expenses, things you're going to need to keep your life running. Ensuring lifestyle, which that's things that you want to do and how you want to live. So both today and in retirement. And then preparing for unexpected is really any events that could derail all your financial plans. So whatever could mess up, 30 or 40 years worth of hard work, we want to make sure we plan for that. And then leaving a legacy is about the impact you want to make today and in the future on people, charities, causes, whatever is most important to you. And we try to do that in the most tax efficient way possible. So our goal is to help make you feel more confident overall about your both immediate and long-term financial needs and goals using that confident retirement approach. So and we'll jump into today's specific agenda. We're going to talk about why your future financial security and retirement lifestyle depends on how you save and invest. So we're going to cover why retirement planning matters, simple steps you can take, some key questions to ask, how you can control your situation, and then understanding your company retirement benefits, the importance of evaluating your complete financial picture, and then finally how it fits into the overall big picture. So again, it's a kind of a high-level overview. I'll try to get through this relatively quickly so I can open up for your questions and just address what's important to you today. But if anyone has any other information, of course, after the presentation, feel free to follow up with me by email. My contact information will be at the end of the presentation. So retirement planning matters because you might need quite a bit of money put aside to generate an adequate retirement income. For instance, in order to generate an annual income of $40,000 for 30 years, which is a typical retirement time frame, about 30 years, you'd have to save more than $900,000. So this is where a financial advisor can help you to create a plan and advise on the process in order to reach that retirement goal. So some steps you can take. If retirement is 15, 20, even 30 years away, here's 4 simple steps to keep in mind. The best news is, like, number one, use time to your advantage. You may have time on your side. So the longer time period you have in which to save gives you obviously more time for those assets to grow. Number 2, you likely have a number of competing financial priorities. Maybe buying a home or getting a new car, saving for college, maybe paying off college. Your biggest challenge might be finding a way to balance and prioritize all of your savings goals. With 25 or 30 years before retirement, now is the time to use your workplace retirement plan to build for the future. Number 3, we want to calculate your retirement income goal early in the game so you can help focus on how much you need to save and get a concrete target to aim for. So it's important to know what you're shooting for so that you can build a program to get there. And then 4th, as your income increases, increase your retirement plan contributions. And this will help you to keep from falling short of your goal. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail down the road, and you'll see what a big impact that can have. So regardless of where you are in relation to retirement day and retirement savings, there are key questions that drive the process of getting there. So to begin, I don't recommend take out a calculator and start crunching numbers. Allow yourself to think about, dream a little bit about your future. There's no right or wrong answers. And don't worry if you don't really know what you want to do during that phase of your life. It might be 30 years away. At this point, it is helpful to think about potential things like travel, maybe working in a nonprofit sector, or just doing something totally different. So understanding that your goals might change at some point, and in fact, they probably will, but they're your dreams, they're your goals. So you want to just think about what does retirement look and feel like for me, and that'll help you to really determine your target income needs. So once you consider the goals you've identified, how much do you think they will cost? Well, there's no way to know precisely, but you might be able to get a general sense for the cost of your ideal retirement by comparing it to your current lifestyle. So based on that comparison, you might need a little more than your current income, you might need a little less. In any event, retirement tends to unfold in stages. So what this chart is going to show is, on average, you need a little more money in the early years of retirement than you do in later years. So this just shows average annual expenditures within the U.S. in different age categories. And so you can see, generally what we see is, the first 10 years of retirement especially, people tend to spend more than in the years beyond that, because you retire and then you're still relatively healthy. So that's when you do traveling and those kind of things. So the other thing to think about too is when, oftentimes we think about retirement, we're thinking maybe 65 or 62 or 67. But I run into several clients every year that call me and say, I guess I'm retired. Maybe they're 58 or they're 60 and they plan to work to 65, but maybe their employer had a different idea, maybe downsizing or whatever it might be. And now they find themselves potentially having to retire much earlier. So again, that's where using the time you have now to save can give you some big flexibility down the road. So we know Social Security is a critical component for many retired Americans. So currently, according to a recent study, 93% of households rely on Social Security as a source of income. So I don't know if you've considered where your retirement income might come from, but this study talks about, where people think their retirement income is going to come from. And so you'll see 84% of workers expect at least some Social Security benefits to provide income in retirement. 76% expect to continue to work either full-time or part-time, and somewhere in between, maybe work in a different profession, continue to work beyond that normal retirement age. About 77% expect money from employer-sponsored plans such as 401ks. And then just slightly less, 69% anticipate income from IRAs, individual retirement accounts. We'll talk a little bit more about that down the road. And then 65% from other personal savings or investments beyond IRAs. And then the last category is pensions. So I don't know if anybody on the call currently has a pension. We're seeing fewer and fewer companies offer that as a benefit. There are still some, but close to half the workers today are not expecting any kind of pension down the road in retirement. So the key here is if working past retirement age is not appealing to you, then planning now for retirement income is critical. So ideally, we all want to work optional retirement. So we want to make sure we can create a stable stream of income to last your entire life. So this slide talks a little bit about how you can invest your retirement savings. So it all depends on your personal situation. The 3 bar charts just represent 3 distinctly different allocations. So you may have heard about the old saying in real estate, it's location, location, location. Well, with investing, it's all about allocation, allocation, allocation. So these bar charts are not recommendations. They just show different examples. On the left, someone with maybe a much longer term time horizon would have a much bigger percentage in the more risky stocks or stock funds versus someone on the far right who's getting ready to draw income is going to have a much smaller percentage in stocks and a much bigger percentage in bonds or even cash. So the main takeaway is the longer time horizon, the more growth potential you need from your assets. So if you're 50 and you plan to live into your 90s, well, that's a 40-year time horizon. If you're 30 and you plan to live to your 90s or 100s, you've got about a 60 or 70-year time horizon. Could you save $1 million? Well, we all have different retirement income goals. But when we talk about accumulating money in a general sense, I like to use $1 million as a placeholder, kind of a signpost of success. So here's a little quiz to see if you know what it might take to accumulate $1 million in retirement. So let's assume you already have $10,000 in your workplace retirement plan, and you've got 30 years before your retirement party. Your allocation is set up for long-term growth, and you're getting 5% average annual return. Your money is what we call compounding. So it's growing. Compounding is a process of reinvesting your earnings every year so you can earn interest on your interest. So how much do you think you would need to save to end up with $1 million? And there's a multiple choice, so 1,000, 1,075, 1,150, 1,225. The correct answer is 1,150, which in this hypothetical scenario actually grows to slightly more than $1 million. So this just illustrates the power of tax-deferred compounding and speaks to that time advantage that we talked about a couple slides ago. Workplace retirement benefits offer an efficient and rather painless method to save for retirement. Having the cost of benefits withheld directly from your pay can be helpful because you'll never see the money and you may never miss it. Contributing to workplace benefits is often automated, so you don't have the additional hassle associated with transferring money from your savings account. Workplace benefits often have desirable tax treatments that allows you to reach your goal more quickly than if you saved on your own outside of the retirement plan. And then depending on the employer's plan, you might also be eligible for a match from your employer. And most employers nowadays do offer a match. So that means is you put in a certain percentage from your paycheck and they'll match up to a certain percentage depending on their plan. So the benefits process can seem intimidating. I'll just let you know, I mean, I'm available as well as many advisors out there to meet with you if you like, to help make your elections and help make more sense for your situation. So this talks about the power of tax-deferred compounding. So we talked about that a little bit before. In this hypothetical example, Lisa came to see me 5 years ago with a goal of establishing a retirement savings strategy with her 401k. At 31, she had almost all of her earning years ahead of her. Based on her annual salary of $66,500 and annual increases of 2.5%, I showed her how saving the same amount from each paycheck over 36 years can grow into a substantial sum, $398,619. But next I showed Lisa what happens if she increased her contribution by only 1% every 3 years, an increase that she admitted she would not even notice. Projecting a 7% average annual investment return and capping her total contributions at 15% of her pay, her potential now goes up to $1,177,000 by the time she's 67. That's the potential power of tax-deferred compounding with escalated savings rates. So it's just saving every time you get a raise. This example talked about every 3 years. I like to look at every time you get a raise, put at least half of that or put a chunk of it into your savings until you've got your retirement savings maxed out. And this example just shows what that can do for you. So most of you are probably participating in a 401k plan or maybe a 403b plan, depending on the employer. If you're not, perhaps now you can see the value in saving in one. So as we talked about earlier, your tax-deferred retirement plan will likely provide a large portion of your retirement income. So it's important to take advantage of the benefits and save as much as you can to help the account grow and reduce your taxable income now and monitor your investment allocation. The IRS annual maximum contribution limit is $19,500. So that's the most you could put in per year. Very few people do that, but you could do up to $19,500. Most companies, like I mentioned earlier, offer a match to help you with savings. And I always recommend at an absolute minimum to put in enough in your 401k to get the employer match, because that's free money. Vesting, if you have any questions on vesting, vesting schedules only apply to company contributions. So any money that you put in is always 100% vested. The Roth 401k, with a Roth 401k, you have the option to designate a deferral as after tax, and it goes into a Roth 401k account. And I may touch on this again down the road, but with a Roth 401k, similar to a Roth IRA, in my opinion, the Roth is something that we should all be maxing out as much as possible. That's the best retirement benefit that we have available. So we could talk about that more, but with very rare exception, most of us should be putting as much money we can into Roth 401k. And then once you're 50 and older, now you can put an additional $6,500 a year into your 401k. So now you're up to $26,000 per year you could be tucking away in your 401k. And then if you haven't checked your account in a while, I always recommend review it on a regular basis. And here's just a little more detail on a Roth 401k. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. So that example I mentioned earlier about maybe down the road you end up retiring earlier than you originally thought. I have a lot of clients right now that are, maybe 60 years old and find themselves retired, and they don't qualify for Medicare until 65. So now they're in that window where they need to buy health insurance. And so if they're going to go buy insurance on the health exchange, the premium is dependent on their income. So having a bunch of money in a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA gives them flexibility. They can draw on that Roth money and it doesn't affect their taxable income. So if, that enables them to keep below that income limit and still qualify for the discount on the premium for their health insurance. So kind of wrapping it up, with the right financial advisor, life can be brilliant. When you're free from worry about your finances, you're more able to be who you want to be and go where you want to go. So it starts with advisor listening to you and having a straightforward conversation about your goals and dreams. From there, we break down financial planning into manageable steps using the comprehensive approach that we just talked about. That's what the confidential retirement approach is all about, helping you gain inspiration and confidence that you need to be brilliant. So if you leave with no other message today, it's this: take action now. So if you're not already maximizing your employer-sponsored retirement plans, don't wait. It's very easy to gather information about all your options. It's a little harder to decide on a plan and make decisions and move ahead. So sometimes that can be a daunting task, but that's what people like me are here for, to help you go through those options and figure out what's going to work best for you. So that's it for my prepared slides. We will open it up to any questions. Let me turn off my screen share here if I can remember how to do that.
Thank you both so much. Those were great presentations. It looks like we do have a couple of questions in the chat. Let me take a look at them and I'll read them out loud. So someone asked, how should I decide if I should use a high deductible health plan with an HSA or a traditional plan?
So it's really going to depend on a couple of things that I would suggest you looking at. So a high deductible health plan is typically going to be lower cost in your monthly premiums than a traditional like PPO plan, but higher out-of-pocket costs if you were to incur some medical expenses. So as an example, if you're on a high deductible plan, maybe you pay $40 a month for individual coverage, versus a traditional plan, you may be paying $100, $150 a month for coverage. That high deductible plan, though, if you're going to the doctor because you feel like you have strep throat, it may cost you, it's going to cost you pretty much the full cost of going to that doctor's office plus the medical, the test for the strep throat. You're going to be out of pocket that money because you have to hit your deductible before the insurance sets in. Versus a PPO, you're going to probably pay a copay in a very small amount, maybe $15. So basically it's a risk, right? So it's your risk tolerance and your known health for recurring medical expenses. So if you're fairly healthy, don't have any chronic illnesses, don't have any planned surgeries or big events going to occur, perhaps the high deductible plan is the way to go. You pair that with a health savings account in which that you're contributing to, and basically you get to keep your money, you get to control where your medical dollars are spent versus giving it to the health insurance company as a just in case scenario. But if you have something like a chronic illness like diabetes, high blood pressure, something like that, you may want to go the traditional plan route, just from a risk standpoint.
And one of the other things to keep in mind too with the HSA, that money is pre-tax. So that's going to reduce your taxable income every year. And that money can accumulate. You can use that anytime down the road. So that moves with you if you move jobs. So that's just one other thing to consider also.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've got another question that came in by email. It says, I attain age 65 in December. I'm planning so far to stay on my employer's health plan, but I'm told that Medicare would be secondary. What does that mean exactly? Do I need to enroll in Medicare for it to be secondary to my employer provided plan?
So
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I am not a Medicare expert by any means, but what I do know is that if you have a secondary insurance and a primary insurance, I guess if your employer plan is going to be primary, those plans would need to work in concert and tandem with one another. But I'm for sure not an expert on Medicare.
Well, I don't know if I totally understood the question. Is this person still working or just still able to have other benefits? Because one of the things to think about is you want to sign up for Medicare. You have a 7-month window around age 65, 3 months prior, the month you turn 65, and 3 months after. That's your window to sign up for Medicaid. You want to enroll in the system, regardless of if you're going to use the benefits right away or not. You want to get in the system, because if you don't, once you get beyond that 3-month window beyond your 65th birthday, you enroll later down the road for the I always confuse the parts, for the Part B, I believe, where you're paying the premium. Those premiums are going to be higher. So and they'll be higher forever. So you want to make sure you get in their system during that 7-month window around your 65th birthday. But then if you have other benefits to use, you won't have to turn on the Medicare benefits right away.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that person was on the call or what, that came in through email, whenever we talked about the AMA. So,
Okay.
but we do have some more questions in the chat from Samantha. What is your advice on taking a loan from your 401k?
My advice, do that as a last resort. I have clients that have done it, and it's a nice option to have. The downside to taking a loan against your 401k is if you lose your job for any reason, you have to pay it back. So generally when you take a loan, it's payable back over usually 5 years. So the advantage is you're paying yourself back with interest. You don't have to go take money from the bank. But if you lose your job, that entire loan is either going to be due or they're going to deem it an early distribution from your plan, and now it's taxable plus penalty. So generally I advise don't take a loan from your 401k unless you have no other option.
Okay, from Joel, I am a new hiree starting a Roth 401k in May. Any tips for making contributions in the first partial tax year?
Well, just in general, Kind of like I said during my presentation, my recommendation is get as much money in that Roth bucket as you can between now and retirement. So, you're limited on the calendar year to, if you're under 50, to 19,500. You can do up to 100% of your salary in most plans. So you can do as much as you can afford to do in that first year to get as close to that limit as you can. And then after December, back down the withholding, from your paycheck. Most people can't do, 20,000 out of their salary or 19,000, but some can. So my recommendation is, max it out, at least enough to get the company match. But if I heard the question right, it was around, there's only a partial year left here. So you might want to bump up your contributions more than you will for the following year, and then bump it down at the start of the year.
Okay. Let's see. Joanna says, I took 4 years off to go back to school. What do you recommend for making up the gap in contributions to my 401k?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's just, you just have to try to, like we talked about competing priorities. So, if we went back to school, you may have incurred some additional debt, education debt that has to get paid off. But if nothing else, you lost some time. So my recommendation is always, put as much as you can. And one way to maybe do it is, set aside a savings account or a non-IRA account, but separate from your main checking account. So you can try to maximize your savings. So maybe you put, I'll just pick a number. Maybe you put, $300 a month into your 401k, and you put another 100 or 2 or 3 into the savings account. To try to use that concept to pay yourself first. That way, if maybe you stretched it a little too tight, you can always go back to your savings account and grab it back out. But if you get 6 months down the road, 9 months down the road, and you don't need it, well, now you can bump up your savings. You could turn around and take that chunk of money and put it into a Roth IRA, or you can simply, have that as a cash reserve, but know that, hey, now I can bump up my 401k contributions because I know I can get by without that additional amount. So just be aggressive on saving, but the idea there is use that savings account as kind of a little emergency cushion until you know you can actually contribute at that amount.
I just had a quick question. I thought back to the question that somebody else had about the HSA. Is that, can you have an HSA account with also being on a PPO plan, or is it only like the high deductible plans?
It's only on the high the consumer driven health plan. It has to have a qualifying plan attached to it to have the health savings account.
Yeah.
Employers will also offer a flexible spending account, which is also going to give you a boost with those tax benefits outside of a high deductible plan. The only downside to it is a use it or lose it plan that you have to, if whatever funds you set aside in that year, you have to spend in that given year on medical expenses.
Yeah. But now once you have the HSA, you get to keep it. So even if you start with a high deductible plan and you put money in your HSA, and then maybe next year or the years down the road, you switch to a PPO plan, now you can't put any more money in the HSA, but you don't lose those dollars. You still have that account. So you just can't, you can only contribute if you have a high deductible health plan.
Okay, I think I had them confused with the flexible spending. Samantha asks, would you still get life insurance if you don't have kids?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
I
You're going to have
would,
expenses. you're gonna have expenses. If you were to pass away, you'll have expenses from passing away, and managing your estate, and any of that money is gonna assist with some of that.
Yeah, the toughest thing with life insurance is I always tell people you buy life insurance for someone you owe or someone you love. And the best time to buy it is yesterday, always. So it's really hard, even if you don't have any kids now, maybe you will down the road. I mean, your needs are going to change. And I've never, 15 years in business, I've never met anyone when time came for an insurance claim that they said the check was too big, whether it's life insurance, homeowners, auto, whatever it is. So you can't be overinsured. The insurance companies won't insure you for more than you should have or you could have. So most of the time, when I run into people, they don't have enough coverage. And, people my age, if I meet them and they're 50 or 60, wish they would have bought more coverage when they were younger. Because $100,000 doesn't go that far anymore. So, there's all kinds of rules of thumb, but if you're married, especially if kids might be in the future, to have somewhere 10 to 20 times your income in life insurance is certainly not too much coverage to have. And then it just all depends on which type of coverage you get. So that's where an advisor can help you figure that out.
What are either or both of your main tips for someone who might be switching a job in the next coming months? Like, how should someone prepare? Or is there anything they should look into first?
Take that, Kasey.
Sure. If you're preparing to switch for a job, or if you considering looking for a job, making sure you fully understand your total comp package first, what your benefits are, what the dollar assigned to them is, because when you get into the negotiation phase in a new job, it goes quick. Like when the offer's made, you don't have a whole lot of time to be digging into a lot of details. And so having where your current state is today ready to go to be able to compare side by side is really important. Something you'll want to really make sure is when you leave your current job, how long you stay eligible for medical insurance. Some companies, it is you term on April 25th, it is done April 25th. Others, it may last through the end of the pay period. Some it will last through the end of the month. So that's going to vary because you may have a gap in coverage. That's nothing to be alarmed about. You have COBRA options. COBRA is flexible. You have 60 days to elect it, so you may not even need it to have that gap in coverage until your next insurance is in place. But that's typically the biggest thing people are asking about is, what is my risk of having that gap in coverage? Knowing that, what's the total value there? Those would be the primary things that I get asked very often.
Yeah, and COBRA coverage is generally much more expensive than what you're paying currently.
Yeah.
So, if you plan on switching jobs, you don't have that next job lined up yet. It's just something to know that with a gap in coverage, you may have a gap or you may have some increased costs until you get on a new employer plan. And the other thing to keep in mind with regard to retirement, your retirement plans, is you'll have 4 options with your employer-sponsored retirement plan. You can, if you have dollars in there, you can leave them where they are with your old employer. You can roll them over to your 401k with your new employer. You can take them out, which I never recommend. I have not come across an example yet where that makes sense, because unless you're over 59 and a half, you're going to have penalty plus income tax, but you could take it out. Or the 4th option is you could roll it over to an IRA, which in a lot of cases, that is a lot of times people's best option. So it all depends on your individual circumstance, but with an IRA, and we didn't really talk about this, but the difference between an IRA and a 401k primarily is the IRA is yours individual retirement account, you own it. Your investment options are much, much broader, thousands of different investments, and you take it with you wherever you go. The employer-sponsored plan, the assets actually belong to the plan, even though there's an account statement with your name on. Your investment options are limited to usually a few dozen choices that plan sponsor has selected. And oftentimes they're very good ones, but just much more limited. So
Okay, we've got another question in the chat. Kasey, you mentioned negotiating a couple of times. Where do I begin negotiating pay or benefits?
Oh, it's really going to depend on what's important to you. So typically, things like medical, dental, vision, life insurance, those are not negotiable. Those are not, you're not going to be able to negotiate on those, but knowing what the value is will help you maybe baseline where you want to negotiate on your base salary to kind of even the playing field there. So if you're used to paying out of pocket $20 a paycheck for medical insurance, and now you're going to pay out $100 a paycheck, you want to make sure you negotiate that delta in your base salary so that you're not seeing a loss of income there. So that is why I say total comp. From just a knowing, knowledge is power for yourself to know how far out of scope perhaps you want to gauge that base. The other thing is big is in the 401k. Actually, some employers will contribute 8%, some will contribute 2%. So knowing that that's a big amount of income that is coming in just free cash there for you, and making sure you're able to recoup some of that money on the back end is important on your negotiation.
Okay, it's looking like we've got like 2 minutes left. If anyone has any last minute questions, you can either unmute yourselves or drop them in the chat really quick. Thank you both so much for everything that we've talked about. This has been super helpful for me, I'm sure for everyone else as well. Crazy terms and a lot to take in when you're first heading into the workforce or even switching jobs. So thank you both so much.
yeah, you're welcome. We went through a lot of information. So just to reiterate, if anybody has any questions, feel free to email me, reach out and ask, because I went through things really fast.
Same, I feel the same way.
Yeah. Okay, well, if nobody has any questions, this has been great. Thank you both again. We were glad to have you guys. I think that's it. Everybody have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.